And the local stories you care about.
WLBB, Carrollton, News Talk, 1330, FM 106.3.
Welcome to the WLBB Community Voice program on News Talk 1330 FM 106.3. I'm your host today, Sara Claudia Tillman, and I hope everybody is getting their Wednesday off to a great start. I'm joined today by Jason Rowell, who is a father of four, a husband, and a Carrollton police officer. And he is going to inspire us all today, I'm sure, with his story of how after a terminal cancer diagnosis, he was able to turn to his family and his faith to find the motivation to take control of his life and his health. Welcome, Jason.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, I'm excited. I'm excited for our listeners to hear your story, but first, I want them to get to know you a little bit better, so why don't you give us some background and tell us where you're from?
Well, I was raised in Buchanan, so I graduated from Harrison County in 1992. I immediately moved to Carrollton to attend the University of West Georgia. I was there for 3 years and found myself playing softball with a bunch of Carrollton police officers, and I developed a relationship with those guys, and next thing I knew, I was applying to be a police officer with the city of Carrollton, and I went to work there in July of 1995. So I've been in and around Carrollton ever since.
Nice. And you have your wife, Amy.
My wife, Amy, is my she is my real life hero. Mm-hmm. You know, there was times during this process that she was working full time as an ER nurse. She was in school at UAB to be a nurse practitioner. Mm-hmm. She had the responsibility of 3 kids in the house and a husband with a terminal illness that was not always firing on all cylinders. And somehow she managed to make it all looked easy. Yeah. She has literally saved my life twice during this process. I would not be here today if not for her. So I have been blessed in a big, big way by my wife.
It's so important to have people like that in your life, especially when you're going through something so hard. So let's go back to 2013. That was your first diagnosis, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. What were the signs leading up to that?
I had pain in my right ear that had progressively gotten worse. The doctor, the ENT, kept telling me that it was acid reflux, that I had a pretty bad acid reflux problem. So finally I went to him. Now I'm talking over a 8-9 year period. I went back to him and said, hey, you know, the pain, I'm killing myself with Advil and duties and everything to try to mask the pain. I have to do something. And they did a CT scan, which revealed stage 4 cancer. So,
and how did you handle that news? Because you also had a baby on the way, correct?
That's right. Amy was pregnant with our youngest, who is now 6. We had found out the Tuesday before that we were having a little girl. So I went from being ecstatic and on top of the world to getting gut punched by life. 10 days later, you know, I'm getting put flat on my back. So, you know, once it was all said and done, though, I was not surprised. I was living a very hard life. I was burning a candle at both ends. Very little sleep. My diet was not good. I was working a lot. I was playing in a band. on the weekends, a band called Southern Comfort. So I was in the music. I was in a full-time job. Mm-hmm. I had my hand in 2 small businesses, and I was just not taking care of myself. So I was not surprised. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was a big blow, but I was not surprised by the way I was living my life.
So after that first diagnosis, what were the steps that followed that? Well,
I did chemo and radiation. They gave me a lifetime of radiation up front because it was stage 4. Mm-hmm. It was in the base of my tongue. It had the nerves from my right ear tangled up into it, mm-hmm. and then it was down to my jawbone. So they hit me pretty hard with chemo and radiation. I was on the tail end of that as our daughter was born in August of 2013. So when she was born, I was not in a really good place at that time. So from there, the cancer went into remission. It kind of flew under the radar for several months, and then it came back. Mm. And that's when they decided to do surgery. And they removed about 55% of my tongue and gutted the right side of my neck. And had to come in and do some reconstruction work. So it was about a 13-hour surgery.
What was that? I can imagine it was kind of like an emotional roller coaster going from trying to be happy for the birth of your daughter to all of this, scariness of having cancer. What was that like?
Well, and it's hard to function normally on the medication. Mm-hmm. There was so much medication involved. At one point, I had multiple feeding tubes, and I got to the point with the medication where I told my wife, I said, I feel like with the medication, I'm just not myself. It's hard to enjoy certain aspects of your life if you're medicated. So I had to come to a point in life to where I said, okay, I want to get off all this stuff, the pain medicine, and everything they had me on, just to be able to get back to a somewhat normal life and trying to be a father to a newborn and trying to be an asset to my family.
Were there a lot of times where you just wanted to quit it all? You just wanted to give up and take what was left, and almost like what was supposed to be helping you was making everything harder?
Yeah, the chemotherapy, anybody that's been through chemo, that stuff really hits you. Mm-hmm. And there was times where I closed my eyes at night that I was fairly certain that I was not going to wake up the next day. But during the process, now this journey now has been 7 years, and over the past 7 years, I've actually been to my wife twice and said, I'm ready to give up. I have nothing left to fight with. I can't do this anymore. This is too difficult. Yeah. And my wife basically would tell me, hey, look, we're not, that's not the way this is going to go down. If you need to go back there in the bedroom and feel sorry for yourself for 2 or 3 hours, that's fine. But you have a 3-year-old daughter back there, and the day that you can look her in the eye and tell her that you've done everything in your power to stay here with her, then maybe we'll have the conversation about you giving up. But that's not, we're just not going to have that conversation. Yeah. So, there were times that I was ready to give up, and luckily I had someone like her who just wouldn't allow me to do that. Yeah.
She gave you a little bit of tough love.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and I needed it. I think everybody that has been through that,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a hard road. It really is.
Yeah, I know my family's given me a little bit of tough love when I start feeling sorry for myself. So I understand sometimes it's very much needed. But we're going to take a short break to hear from our sponsors. We'll be right back on News Talk 1330 Community Voice with Jason Rowell.
Oak Mountain Academy is an innovative school of academic excellence creating and celebrating legacies. I'm Patrick Uran, headmaster, inviting you to join us for our 32nd annual Spring Gala this Saturday in the University of West Georgia Campus Center Ballroom. Join us for a silent and live auction, cocktail hour, dinner, casino games, and dancing as we celebrate the legacy of our mighty warriors and recognize our generous supporters. For more information, visit us at oakmountain.us. I look forward to seeing you this Saturday for an exciting evening of fun, food, and fellowship.
At Tanner, we're advancing health throughout West Georgia and East Alabama because we know that exceptional care isn't based on how many patients we serve, but how well we serve them. That's why we're focused on quality, delivering the best possible care for our patients. It's why we're expanding our clinical services and building new facilities to serve our growing community. And it's why we're looking beyond our hospitals and medical practices to develop sustainable wellness and preventive health programs in our region. What makes a hospital great has changed. It's not how many beds we have. It's how well we care for the neighbors who need them. Delivering the right care to every patient, every time, is how Tanner is advancing health with medicine beyond measure. Learn more at tanner.org. or find a physician on our medical staff by calling 770-214-CARE.
We are back in the WLBB Community Voice program on News Talk 1330 FM 106.3. I'm Sara Claudia Tillman here with our guest, Jason Rowell. And before the break, we're talking about how you found the motivation to keep moving forward despite the hardships that cancer was giving you and the chemo and all of the treatments. So tell us more about that.
Well, I think, the driving force was my youngest daughter. Maybe my wife used to get a little bit offended when I said that, but I told her I loved her enough to where I wanted her to have a normal life, but I knew with my daughter that there was nobody on this planet that was going to love her and cheer her on and be in her corner and do the things for her, be there to protect her and so forth. So my little one was kind of my driving force to push me to do the research and to find the right combination to keep me going and keep me strong.
And this all kind of occurred after your most recent diagnosis?
Yes. Now, that was at MD Anderson in 2017. That was April 2017, where they told me the cancer had came back a third time. And unfortunately, it was very close to my carotid artery, and surgery was not an option. And from a conventional standpoint, they had nothing left to offer me. So with tears in her eyes, my wife asked the doctor how much time I had left, and he said, based on our data, he has about 12 months. So that's going on 3 years ago. And, I just I just wasn't finished yet.
Yeah.
And so I started praying and asking God. At first, I didn't ask for healing because I didn't feel like I had lived my life in a way that deserved healing. I didn't feel like I was worthy of healing.
Yeah.
So I was just asking for a sign because I was, at the time, I was afraid to die. I mean, I was terrified of dying. But when God showed up in my life, he showed up in a big way. And started kind of pointing me in the direction that I would need to go, that would give me more time here with my family. So I just kind of followed Yeah. You have to be, I've learned, you have to get real still.
Yeah.
And real quiet and stop the chaos in your head. And when you're able to do that, you can hear the voice of God telling you what you need to do, what your next move, should be.
Yeah.
And luckily, I was able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to become disconnected. I found that in my own life after I lost my sight. I was kind of forced to be disconnected because I couldn't use my phone. I couldn't scroll through social media, but that's where I found the time to listen and see what God wanted me to do next. And I think that is so important for people to hear, that despite you getting this terminal diagnosis, people telling you, you just have 12 months to live, you listened to God who said, no, I don't think we're done yet. And then what were your next steps moving forward from that?
Well, I had to look at my life and say, okay, how did I end up here? What got me, what brought me to this point? And I just had to totally change the way that I live my life as far as my diet, my nutrition, what I put in my body, exercise, my stress management, my sleep habits, the quality of my sleep, the amount of sleep I was getting, my spiritual connection, my emotional, mental. I mean, it was all, and that's what I've learned for anybody who's dealing with a chronic or terminal illness. It's not just one aspect of your life. You have to sit there and look at every aspect of it and say, okay, where did I go wrong? What can I do to correct it?
Yeah.
And there had to be I guess what I would call an overcorrection on my diet and nutrition, just because my diet and nutrition was so poor for so long. But it's hard, it's very easy to get caught up in the standard American diet.
Oh, yeah.
When you're running 9-0, you don't take the time to slow down to eat healthy and prepare your food and things like that. So I had to go way on the other end of the pendulum of that. And, I now spend a lot of time in the kitchen, and I make my own food, and I grow a lot of my own food. And, of course, the fasting. You and I have had conversations about fasting.
Yes. So explain that to our listeners who might not, they know the word fasting, but they don't really know it from a health standpoint.
There was a lot of trial and error in the beginning on what I felt like might work or what might be the right combination for me. And what I ended up settling on was what I refer to as a clean ketogenic / fasting lifestyle. And all that means is that my body exists more in a fasting state than it does in a fed state. I do a lot of fasting. And what happens with the standard American diet is when you eat a meal, it takes your body, depending on what you eat, anywhere from 16 to 22 hours to digest that meal and assimilate what nutrients are in it to your cells. With the standard American diet, by the time your breakfast is digested and assimilated to your cells, you've already eaten three more times.
Yeah.
So as Americans in the standard American diet, we live in a fed state. But when you have chronic and terminal illness, you have to figure out how to exist in a fasted state or a repair state, a cleansing state. And I teach seminars on that. I mean, I have my next one is April 25th at Southern Hills, City Station, to where I go over every aspect of my protocol and say, this is how I've managed to do this over the past 3 years. And I cover the science behind it because there is a science to it.
Yeah. And I think it sounds so radical to people, but once they kind of understand the benefits and what it can truly do for your body, and people become a lot more open to it. But we're going to take another break to hear from our sponsors, but we'll be back with Jason Rowell to hear more about his lifestyle changes.
At Tanner, we're advancing health throughout West Georgia and East Alabama because we know that exceptional care isn't based on how many patients we serve, but how well we serve them. That's why we're focused on quality, delivering the best possible care for our patients. It's why we're expanding our clinical services and building new facilities to serve our growing community. And it's why we're looking beyond our hospitals and medical practices to develop sustainable wellness and preventive health programs in our region. What makes a hospital great has changed. It's not how many beds we have. It's how well we care for the neighbors who need them. Delivering the right care to every patient, every time, is how Tanner is advancing health with medicine beyond measure. Learn more at tanner.org or find a physician on our medical staff by calling 770-214-CARE.
Oak Mountain Academy is an innovative school of academic excellence creating and celebrating legacies. I'm Patrick Uran, headmaster, inviting you to join us for our 32nd annual Spring Gala this Saturday in the University of West Georgia Campus Center Ballroom. Join us for a silent and live auction, cocktail hour, dinner, casino games, and dancing as we celebrate the legacy of our mighty warriors and recognize our generous supporters. For more information, visit us at oakmountain.us. I look forward to seeing you this Saturday for an exciting evening of fun, food, and fellowship.
We are back on the WLBB Community Voice program on News Talk 1330 FM 106.3. I'm your host, Sara Claudia Tillman, and I'm here with Jason Rowell, who is going to tell us a little bit more about how after he was given a terminal cancer diagnosis, how he changed his lifestyle and took control of his health. So we were talking a little bit before the break about your eating and fasting plan. What does a normal day for you look like food-wise?
Well, I'll be honest with you. It's a normal conversation in our house for my wife to say, "Hey, are you eating today?" And I might say, "What is today? Today's Wednesday. You know what? I'll eat on Saturday." And I might water fast between now and then. I may have some bone broth between now and then. But most days, a normal day is I have one meal in the day, and usually that's mid-afternoon, early evening. But that one meal, and my Facebook wall is plastered with those meals, but they're very nutrient-dense meals. The sauerkraut and avocado or homemade guacamole and wild-caught salmon and blueberries and raspberries and mushrooms and onions and broccoli and the bone broth and things like that. But one meal a day, normally that's it. It's very low carb. There's not a lot of carbs in there at all. I prefer to live my life in ketosis. If I didn't weigh, I weigh 145 pounds, so I have to be careful with that. But your energy level is so much better. Your mental clarity is so much better. I feel so much better when my body is in ketosis. And I know not everybody's going to understand that, but it's just where your body burns fat as opposed to burning sugar as its primary fuel source. That's all.
And explain health-wise how that is helping you fight cancer.
Well, I think that most everybody can agree now that cancer thrives on sugar and glucose. So if you can reduce the fuel source of the cancer and keep your glucose levels low, then you give your immune system a better chance to recognize the cancer and fight those cancer cells off. And the last CAT scan that I had, which was January of this year, the doctor told me, he said, if you hold up your CT scan from January of 2020 and looked at the scan from 2017, it looks like the same exact scan.
Wow.
There's been no progression whatsoever.
Wow.
So I've been able to maintain that, and to a conventionally medical trained doctor, that's unheard of.
Wow.
For someone who was given my diagnosis in 2017. So
That's amazing.
yeah, I mean, it really is.
That's amazing. And I hope it's very encouraging to any listeners who might be going through the same situation. And what would you tell to somebody going through something similar, and maybe they just feel like giving up and like they have no say in what's happening to their health and their body?
Well, you know, Hippocrates was they call him the father of modern medicine. Somewhere around 400 BC, he said, it is more important to know what type of person has an illness rather than the type of illness a person has. And you have to determine what type of person you are. You have a choice. You can get bitter or you can get better. You can get up or you can give up. You know, you can set up shop as a victim and live in victimhood, or you can become a victor. And just know that there are a ton of alternative methods out there that conventional doctors are just not trained on. And in the very beginning, I looked at it like, okay, MD Anderson is the most powerful cancer hospital in this country, and they gave me 12 months to live. So apparently that means I have 12 months.
Yeah.
And that's just not the case. You know, I mean,
You proved that.
yeah. So, you know, I'm knocking on the door 3 years. I still work. I still work at the police department. I worked the past 2 days. I helped coach my daughter, who is now 6. I helped coach her softball team.
Wow.
So that's been an asset to my family, my children, my wife, my kids, and my community. Means everything to me. And I'm able to do those things now, and still live life, you know.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, we just have a few more minutes. I wish we could sit here and I could talk to you all day about all this. I think it's so interesting and just so amazing. But for anybody listening who is interested in your seminars or getting more information from you, how would they go through email or Facebook, or how would you?
You know, I'm on Facebook, and a lot of my stuff is, like I said, I post it on my wall as far as my diet and some of the stuff that I make that's homemade. My next seminar, I think, I'm waiting on confirmation from Southern Hills City Station, but I think it's April 25th, which is on Saturday. And again, I go over every aspect of my protocol in that seminar and the science behind it, and why it does to your body what it does. But, you know, just I think Denzel Washington said it best. One of the keys to life is if you get knocked down 7 times, you get up 8. But while you're up, if you see someone else down, you help them up because there's strength in that. So I have been in a position to help other people under similar circumstances that I had. And I can tell you from experience, there is definitely strength in reaching down and helping someone else up that's having a hard time with life right now.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thank you so much, Jason, for coming on the show. And I hope all our listeners enjoyed it and were encouraged. I'll see you next month on News Talk 1330, FM 106.3, Community Voice. Thank y'all for listening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.